Hey everybody, welcome to Under the Arch Sports. I'm Eric Hobbs in a
And
hotel.
I, and I'm David Woldingen, not in a
It's time
hotel.
for us to preview, yeah. It's time for us to preview Mizzou for homecoming against Auburn. Before we start, I need you guys follow us on social media: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X, Spotify. All right. This is starting the second half of the season. Block M helmet season. If you ask me, that's probably going to see a lot of that. And homecoming, always a little extra motivation. And I think you kind of have to start with Hugh Freeze's comments on Monday about Missouri doing well with a lesser roster.
Yeah, I don't honestly think he meant it to be a shot at anybody. It's just the way he presented it and the way it came off really came off as a shot, not only at Mizzou but at other teams too. Because he didn't just mention Drinkwitz, he mentions a couple other teams as well. So for a scripted beginning of a presser, I'm not sure that was well thought out
No,
and
not at all.
well presented. But I'm pretty sure he wasn't trying to give bulletin board, but he did.
Yep.
So
Just called everybody in the locker room a lesser roster. So you know that they're hearing about that, and you know they're going to be hearing it all week. All right. It's an interesting game, David. Missouri, 45-3, but still the anger because they haven't played, much less beaten legitimate competition since the A&M disaster. So everybody's still waiting to see that. And this is a game where the perception of Auburn is such that you got to beat them kind of handily for a lot of Mizzou fans to be impressed. The Tigers of Auburn coming in at 2-4, and they won two of their first three. Pulling up the schedule here. Here we go. Yeah, they destroyed Alabama A&M, and then they beat New Mexico. Between that, a loss to Cal, which doesn't look as bad as it did at the time, and they've lost three straight since. They're coming off a bye, so extra week to prepare for Missouri. They got challenges of their own.
yeah, I like to say they're these two teams, while record wise look vastly different at the moment, are very similar teams in the sense of, especially on offense, things just aren't clicking per se. Mizzou definitely has a talent there, but they tend to shoot themselves in the foot. And you could say the same thing for Auburn on the sense of they have a couple of really good players, but their talent quite isn't what Mizzou's is. But at the same time, once they get a drive going, they tend to shoot themselves in the foot with turnovers. They've had what, 9 or 10 turnovers this season?
So that's it for Auburn's offense. Peyton Thorne has been the quarterback for most of the season. He got yanked and benched, and Hank Brown got a start. That was a disaster. So in went Peyton Thorne. I believe it was the Oklahoma game. Not positive on that. May have been Ark. I don't remember. But yeah, for better or worse, it's Peyton Thorne for Auburn, and he's capable. His ceiling is, higher than he's shown, and it's what you said. He is prone to throw interceptions. You know, 10 touchdowns, but six picks. So, yeah, yeah, it's one where Missouri has to turn Auburn over, I feel like, because that's a big part of how you beat the Tigers. I'm going to say the Tigers a lot and confuse everybody, but again, we got a matchup of Tigers here. But the Tigers in blue and orange, you beat them with turnovers. You let them self-destruct and you take advantage, especially when they have the ball.
And the question comes down to, can Missouri's defense do enough without having the major brain farts, especially in the secondary units? Uh, because most quarterbacks are able to take advantage of Missouri's secondary. They haven't. at least in the A&M game, really all season, shown they can get a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and that's usually how you turn people over is by getting pressure on the quarterback. So
Yeah.
the defense is going to have to turn it up a little bit, especially on the line. One, because when you get pressure on a quarterback, it also takes the pressure a little bit off your safeties and corners in
Yep.
coverage, so that they don't have to cover very long. When you're covering for long times, that's when you start having errors or separation with receivers and people get open. Um, so it's a matter of, can the D line get pressure? Can they play consistently without having any major blown coverages and keep the Auburn Tigers in front of them? If they can do that, they could potentially force some errors uh, when Peyton's throwing the football. And if that happens, you could probably see a couple interceptions because Mizzou does have a pick in almost every game, I believe. I think the Texas A&M one, notwithstanding, they have an interception in every game. So the ability to turn them over is there. It's just a matter of, can they play consistent enough to do that and not get burned?
And can they generate the pressure, as you kind of alluded to, generate the pressure to put Peyton Thorne in uncomfortable positions, whereas he is having to hurry his throws or just is uncomfortable in the pocket.
One,
That have a big impact.
and it's worth noting he's the second leading rusher with 54 carries, but he's only had 147 yards on those 54 carries. So I wouldn't say he's a major scrambler in the sense of, it's more of him just fleeing from the pressure probably. So if you can get that pocket to collapse on him, I think that's when you can force those turnovers.
Yeah, and I think getting a quick start, it will be huge for this team because Auburn has a good running back in Jarquez Hunter. He's got 528 yards rushing. That's fifth in the SEC. And he's averaging 6.8 a carry. If you can put Auburn in a position where they're having to play catch up and they're not able to hand the ball off to Hunter, that is a huge advantage, especially when you consider what we just talked about, Thorne at times being turnover prone, mistake prone. You're putting the ball in the hands of a guy who can make mistakes and taking it out of the running back who is among the league leaders. That is a huge thing if Missouri can get a quick start. Now, for this Auburn offense, we mentioned Hunter. He is, he is the running back. You mentioned Thorne, the quarterback, has the second most carries. The second leading running back is going to be, let's see, Damari Alston. And, he's got 29 carries, 186 yards. So, yeah, he is a clear number two. It's not like what we thought preseason Missouri would be with 1A and 1B between Nate Noel and Marcus Carroll. Uh, so you have that. And then at receiver, you have a clear go-to guy there in Keandre Lambert-Smith. He's leading the team 510 yards receiving. He's got 6 touchdowns already on 24 catches, averaging 21.3 yards a catch. So what you're left with Auburn is a a clear go-to guy to focus on in the running game and a clear go-to guy to focus on in your secondary in their passing game, pass defense. So it's nice in that regard. The problem is you got to do it. And Lambert Smith is capable of just kind of blowing right by some of Missouri's defenders. I imagine Dre Norwood will be following him around most of the game. I don't think they want Toriano Pride trying to cover one of the better receivers in the league. That spells trouble, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that, honestly.
So it's interesting in that you have clear guys to focus on. Auburn is kind of the exact opposite defensively. When Missouri has the ball, it's not like, okay, they got a stud linebacker in the middle. He is the focal point. There is no star, but it is very well rounded. Just looking at the statistics, they're tackling. The leading tackler is Dorian Mousy Jr. with 31 total tackles, but they have one, two, three, four. They got five guys with more than 20. All right. And that includes two backers, two D linemen, including a nose tackle, and one guy in the secondary. So at all three levels, they're all over the place in terms of guys who are capable of making plays. It is a team defense. You know, I think it'll be interesting to see if Missouri tries to establish the run, reestablish the stretch run play against actual competition, because UMass does not count. A&M shut it down, and Missouri did not adjust until the game was well in hand, and they were just kind of running out the clock. I want to see a game plan. I think you have to look at the stretch runs, and then if Auburn accounts for it, I want to see the adjustment to running in between the tackles. If that means more Marcus Carroll, so be it.
Well, and resting Nate and getting Marcus some work against UMass may have been a prelude for this upcoming game in a sense of let's see what he can do. We know he can run in between the tackles. So if we're doing that, we can go to him. If we want to run the stretch, we can put Noel in there as well. Plus, you just gave Noel rest after getting clobbered by Texas A&M, which probably was needed. But what I really want to see Mizzou do, especially on offense, is their roots under Drinkwitz throughout the years is a run first team.
Mm-hmm.
They need to establish the run, get the run going, and then start looking to pass. When they opened up with A&M, they went with a couple of deep shots right off the bat, and I think in the first three series they had 3 run plays, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And they tried to throw all over the place. This is not a team that can do that. You have to establish the run and then use it to build the pass off that. So I want to see Mizzou go back to their roots, go back to their ground game just to start things off, and then you can open up the other stuff. I mean, you can still even throw in a deep ball in there in the first series if you want, but you got to start with just opening up on the ground, get those yards, get a short down situation, and get a steady offense going, because that's how you're going to build off what you did in UMass, especially after you pulled Cook out with 2 phenomenal passes, might I add, to Brett Norfleet. So if they can go back to that and use that as a focal point for the rest of the season, I think this offense could really start clicking. But really, in this game,
Brady Cook threw to Norfleet, that 35-yarder down the field that got it in the red zone. That is what Missouri has needed all season long. That is going to take the safety away from other receivers, and it's going to help make the deep ball at least more open. Maybe make it harder to double cover Luther Burden, or maybe now they have the confidence that, okay, Burden's getting double covered. Norfleet is going to have single coverage going down the middle against a smaller safety or even a corner or outside back or whatever they end up doing.
It's worth noting in that UMass game too, that's the first time all 3 tight ends have been healthy. So I'm wondering now with what happened, especially at the end of that game, if you start seeing the tight end get more active in this offense. And if that's the case, you really might see this offense open up, because this offense is at its best when Norfleet can take the pressure off the receivers, and it just opens things up more because it's one more person they have to cover.
Yeah. And you know what else I want to see out of this offense schematically is at random after a first down, throw some tempo in there. Throw some tempo at Auburn. And the reason I say that is, one, Brady Cook, I'm convinced at least half of what is going on with him is just in between the ears. And if he got out of his own head, he would be better. Maybe not all SEC, but better. So I think when you go into a tempo, hurry up type offense, you don't have time to think. You are just going on instinct. All right. And it's a little bit like that offside free play to Weiss. Talked about it in the recap video where, yes, he hit the wrong shoulder that where it could have been a touchdown, but for just a 25-yard play, it was a beautiful ball. All right. And that's stuff where even that Brady Cook has been all over the place. So I think that instinct took over and it was progress. So I want to see that for Brady Cook, but also for the offensive line in terms of being able to like sustain their blocks. Think back to when Josh Heupel was Mizzou's offensive coordinator and the offensive line was terrible. And they talked about every week on the broadcast how tempo disguises that. It hides it. Run some tempo, wear out that Auburn defensive line, and help your O lineman out. We're not sure what's going to happen at left guard. It might be Caden Green. It might be Mitchell Walters. It might be 50-50. That's something to keep an eye on. So help out your offensive line with scheme. That screens as well. We still haven't really seen much screen plays. I don't understand why, but that's there to help. Help your offensive line out. Okay. I think doing that could really open up the offense. And yeah, you may not control the ball as much, but if you're scoring points, who cares?
Yeah, and that's the biggest issue. Get these guys in rhythm, get them what they need to do, and then the consistency will start to come. And as you said, the screenplays, the up tempo, anything you can do to help out your offensive line, especially pass blocking, is huge.
Yes.
Uh, we know the deep ball's not there. We know they don't throw it much, so you don't have to worry about as an offensive lineman holding the block as long. Cook can read the field, get the ball out quick for those short passes. That's where the ground game comes in. If they get that ground and pound game going and open up holes, this team could be really deadly in the sense of now if you run that quick up tempo, maybe dropping a pass play right after a huge first down run or
Yeah.
something, you
Yeah.
could really throw a team off.
Absolutely. Uh, kind of touched on left guard for Missouri's offense. There are other changes on the defensive side of the ball specifically. Joe Moore and Khalil Jacobs out for the year. I think that's an opportunity potentially, and I think what fans are hoping to see. Nick Rodriguez, the linebacker, led the team in tackles against UMass with 9, and then Williams Winery, the 5-star freshman, got his first sack and first real meaningful action. I think, or meaningful, I mean extended, I guess I should say. I think the two of them getting out on the field could at least generate some excitement for the team, especially Winery. It remains to be seen if he is ready, specific to Winery. That was the preseason talk. If he's progressing and he's figuring things out, there's a chance he could be a monster and start to figure things out by the end of this season. And it could start here. We'll see. If he's not ready, Missouri at D end is going to, and at backer, honestly, are going to be a little thin. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to watch those two positions. And I did want to touch on special teams, specifically Auburn's kicker. Their kicker is Towns McCuff, I guess. Hasn't missed any extra points. He's only 4 out of 8 on field goals. His longest field goal that he's made is 32 yards. 3 of his misses are from 50 plus. He's 3 out of 4 from inside 30. I gotta think that's something that's going to impact this game. I think if Auburn is outside the 25-yard line, they're probably not going to kick. He hasn't even tried a field goal of 40 to 49 yards. So that is something where it could prove to be an advantage for Missouri if they could execute fourth down defense. You could see Auburn go for it on fourth down 3 or 4 times, depending on field position and so forth.
Yeah, Eric. Honestly, I think the way these two teams match up and the way they both have deficiencies on at least one side of the ball, it's going to be a real intriguing game, which is also why I think you're seeing big movement on the betting lines. So moving
Yeah,
to
let's get
predictions,
into that. Let's get
yeah,
into that.
moving into predictions, what are you thinking?
You know, I think a lot of people are making a huge deal of the A&M game, and I don't know. I I struggle to see how Auburn is a dog by less than 5 points, 4.5 as of us filming. You know, they've beaten Alabama A&M and New Mexico. They've lost to everybody else. Cal, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Georgia. I struggle to see that. I thought the opening line was by about a touchdown and it jumped quickly. And a lot of the money and the bets are on Auburn still. Maybe Vegas just, I mean, bettors clearly think Auburn. That might be just pissed off Mizzou fans who are going to bet against them against anybody. I don't see it. I think Missouri struggles. You're wondering, four-quarter game. I do think Missouri gets the homecoming win 31-21.
Yeah, I have Mizzou in this 28-24, but I think the name of the game is consistency. Uh, they haven't shown it.
Yeah.
Specifically offensively, but defensively too. Uh, Even against UMass, there were times where it looked like UMass could move the ball on them until they got that pick right before the half. They had that fake punt that drove down the field too against this defense.
See,
Oh,
I disagree. I
that's
disagree on
more that's more special teams, but with the secondary not playing tight and giving up a lot of pass plays, that's where I'm struggling because I don't know if they can turn I don't know if they can turn Peyton over, honestly. I think they leave too many guys open in open spaces, which allow, especially in their zone play. So if they're not getting any pressure, it's just easy pickings for any quarterback back there to tear up our secondary, which is why I think it's going to be a very close game. Uh, if they can tighten that up, if Batoon can maybe dial up some pressure of some kind, I think it could potentially be a blowout. But this almost feels like the A&M game in a sense of where I thought it was going to be close or a blowout Missouri's way, although exact opposite, if you will. Because I think we're right on the edge of if we can't figure things out offensively, it's going to be a struggle the rest of the year. That's where I'm coming from. So it's just a real interesting game to watch, and I think this will set the tone for the second half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird game that for Missouri, I don't think anybody knows what to think.
Yeah, and they just need to build off what they did against UMass. If they can do that, especially on the offensive side, get their run game going, establish the run, and work the pass off the run, I think they'll be fine the rest of the season. And if the defense continues to grow and improve in this system, I think they'll be fine. It's just a matter of consistency at this point.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's why they play the game, Eric. And we'll
Yes.
have post game thoughts probably the Sunday after, depending on how things are.
And I'll
Um,
actually be in my own house.
hey, and
Yeah.
I will be on the road heading towards Alabama for that game. So
Yeah. For those of you who haven't really noticed, I'm in a hotel now. Before the last 2 months, videos uh have been a blank wall in the background. I've been crashing my buddy's house. Long story with the whole military move, but going home tomorrow, Wednesday. So, yay.
but As always, we'll keep you guys updated with all things Mizzou, so make sure you stay tuned. And don't look now, but basketball season's getting ready to kick in, so we'll start having some stuff on the basketball side of things here soon. Until then, thank you guys for watching Under the Arch Sports.